Okay, I'm going to give it just a few more seconds here to let everybody get logged in and audio started. So thank you everybody so much for attending the PUSD College and Career Showcase tonight. I am Eve. I am one of the counselors at Westview High School, and I'm going to be your room host and moderator tonight. We do ask that attendees keep themselves muted during the presentation unless you're otherwise, but feel free to use the chat box if you've got any questions as we go along. There will also be a time to speak to the presenter at the end of the presentation with a Q&A. So as a reminder to all of you, this session is being recorded, so it will be available. This, along with all of the other sessions tonight, will be available on the PUSD CTE YouTube page after tomorrow. So without further ado, I would really like to introduce you to Ed Devine. Ed is the Western Regional Director of Admissions for Xavier University, and tonight he's going to be telling us about considering the transition to campus in your college search. So with that, I will let you take it away, Ed. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Eve, and welcome parents and members of the Poway District. Excited to be here tonight. Again, my name is Ed Devine, and I am a longtime resident of the Claremont, San Diego area, right off the 805, and have been doing the college admissions thing for just about 30 years. I have worked at a couple of different institutions. Xavier happens to be the third Jesuit school I've worked for. I've also worked for Lafayette College, one of the Patriot League schools. I worked for a university in Hawaii called Hawaii Pacific University, and started out in Boston at the Massachusetts College of Pharmacy and Allied Health Sciences. So love the work that we get to do together, the journey that the students are on. I should mention also that my wife is a college counselor. She was most recently at the Parker School in San Diego, but we are now residents of Oahu, and she is the director of college counseling at Punahou School. So we talk a lot about college admissions and love to think about this journey that you are on. Yeah, there's my contact information there. Again, Xavier University is located in Cincinnati, but I'm one of the regionally based counselors. You will run into a whole bunch of people in California, really interested in students from California. And that's one scene or example for our parents of how the college landscape has changed and how students really are crafting lists that are much larger than you and I did, but also they're really diversifying the geographic region that they want to go to. I love talking about this session, the successful launch, considering the transition to college in your search, because I think we've done a disservice perhaps in some cases to young people by not really approaching or talking about what they will experience in large consideration in the freshman year. I think we're kind of gearing them up to do so much in high school, to really kind of dig deep into curriculum and do a lot with extracurricular activities and spend a lot of time thinking about test preparation. And really, they're kind of geared towards getting into the best school they can get into. And we see a lot of times that they approach the college experience passively, or maybe a little bit reluctantly, perhaps because they're burnt out, perhaps just because they think, hey, I worked hard to get here. Now the college or university should make me awesome. So I love to consider this first year experience. It was very instrumental in what I did as a college student, as a first in family to go, and really just kind of unpacking what happened that year is kind of what this session will talk about. We'll also consider, what it looks like in selectivity, et cetera. But yeah, the goals of the session really to talk about forming a college list, and you've got some great counselors in the district and about you, and really the idea of kind of loving a college list, really forming a list that the student can identify and really, take ownership and take pride in. They should commit to a list this time senior year, maybe over the next few weeks, finalizing that list, much more than they should commit to a particular institution. We'll talk about how students make their final college choice, what that might look like, and how they get to that decision process. And then we'll take a look at what it's like when they land on our campus. I've worked with quite a few professionals, cultural anthropologists that talked about these stages of adjustment. And in many cases, our universities have built what we call first-year programs or first-year experiences that really are something to consider when we look at this college search. And when do they become college students? We'll talk about that. We'll talk about this idea of beginning that transition work even while they are in the midst of doing their college search. They're evolving to that. I want to share some of the information that I think is important to unpack as they lean into that search and then eventually that freshman year. And then some general advice. And as Eve said, we've got the chat feature. You're welcome to chat in any question. We will monitor that and be able to answer questions towards the end. And at the end as well, if you want to unmic and ask a question, that's totally fair game as well. So we've got about 30 minutes together, and we'll leave some time for that Q&A. So where the college search starts, really the student has to get to know themselves. This is something that will be clear. I think it's something when we looked at why college search and how it's taken place, the real idea of the self-evaluation or the self-analysis is really critical. So before the student starts looking at colleges, before they start assembling a list, they really need to know why they want to go to college, what's in it for them. There will be an assessment of their academic preparation. Perhaps it's not their best work, perhaps it is, but really where they stand academically. That will help fit into the college academic profiles. Looking at things that they do outside the classroom is very critical to us and to the student, really helping to define and tell the story of the decisions your young students have made, things they do on their resume, things we'll see in their activity list, what inspires them, what gets them excited, really more about who they are in the community that they live in. After they set that up, they can start to assess the colleges. And they'll get to know us based on academics. We're going to talk about admission rates, acceptance rates, but really then they should start to think about class size, school size, where they learn best, if they're very connected to teachers, if that's a benefit to them. A lot of times when we're young, we think we can do it on our own, and we sometimes don't realize and need to assess how much we rely on that mentorship. Thinking about what you love to do outside the classroom is an important part of this. We are now sending students all across the country and the world, in some cases, to start their education or to do their college. So I think really being full community members, both on our campuses and in our local communities, is critical. So really, when I ask students in interviews, two main questions, two big ones, right? Why do you want to go to college? And you can help define that. Students should think about that through their search. Why do they want to go to college? The college students I work with on campus will redefine that as, hey, define your bucket list. What do you want to do for the 4 years in college? When you start to dig deeper into researching schools, you can start to name particular programs on a campus. You can really say, I want to do study abroad, or I want to do internships, and then name the study abroad programs that we have at Xavier or the internship opportunities that exist in Cincinnati. That's a great way to make this deep connection. It's a great way to show you've done your college research, and it's a great way to show something we call demonstrated interest to the college. So that's where that search part starts. You're going to hear this from the counselors a lot. There's a 3-tiered system when they apply to schools. Again, I probably would have applied to 3.5 schools when I went to school in 1985. Students now are doing and applying to 9 to 12 schools. So following this list or this rule of reach, target, and likely can be critical to their success. So reach schools are those that are the school's academic profile is slightly beyond what the student has in their background. They might be a little bit, the school might have higher GPA, higher testing averages. It's a reach school, but for some reason you just feel a connection or a reason that they might give you a shot. The target schools you match up with their academic profile. Again, we're talking mainly academic profile here. We're going to go to what else is involved in the decision in just a second. But that target school is the school that you fit. It makes sense. Academically, it looks like a fit. Likely schools, you're a little bit stronger and you exceed the academic requirements. Those are great to have on the list so that you gear towards success. You should love all these schools. And back to defining why a particular school, you should be able to talk specifically about why any school on this list, not just a reach school because it's a tough school to get into, but what you want to do and what you want to experience on that campus. Those reach schools might bring some deny letters. Who cares, right? It's going to happen. It's part of the process. Don't fear it. If a school denies you, go to their competitor and root against that school forever and have fun with it. The target and likely schools, great opportunities for admission and also for scholarship and financial aid. A lot of those schools in that likely category will deliver nicely on merit and grant aid to help that cost piece of this whole process. So we're going to quickly look at selectivity, what we are talking about when we talk about the selectivity of a school, the admission rates. A lot of students enter into this hearing about the schools, the top 50 schools that are at insanely low competitive rates. We'll talk about those most selective schools. I worked for a Patriot League school in the highly selective category. Prior to that, at the Mass College of Pharmacy, our physician's assistant and pharmacy programs were very selective in that 10% range. Currently, the schools I work at Xavier, we're probably in that moderately selective, and then there's selective and open enrollment. So just to define those quickly, some numbers to think about. Highly selective schools really are admitting below 10%, probably below 15%. You know, the record, or they talk about the most selective schools below 5%. That's insane. It's no way that those decisions will ever make sense. Typically, all the students in that applicant pool, if they're not hooked or connected in some other way, will be top in their class, top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at the high school, possess very strong testing if testing is utilized, and will be really top students within a particular high school. Those schools, you can see, might process 23,000 applications, in this case, to get to 2,000 or 2,100 admits, a 9% admit rate. That's really hard to do, to look at 23,000 or so applications and come up with 3,000 of the best. You're really splitting hairs and getting well beyond, can the student do the work? One thing I want you to think about, though, is the admit to a yield rate. The yield rate is the number we admit that pick us, right? So even at the highly selective schools, not everybody admitted will choose that school. Here you can see a 79% yield rate, the number admitted that attended. Some Ivy League schools can boast 84. Some schools can be all over the map, right? So that's a yield rate is something I want you to think about as we talk more about this kind of leaning into the school and developing a why I want to go there kind of rationale. Highly selective schools probably can admit 15 to sometimes 40%. Again, very selective, hard to make sense of the decisions. A lot of times we are serving what we call institutional priorities in both of these categories, where we have 75% perhaps of the applicant pool that's probably qualified to do the work. But when we craft a class together, we're going to look at creating diversity from every sense of the word. And so we're going to be selective in finding students that we can pull in from different majors, different geographies. We will look for gender balance, et cetera. Again, these schools, you'll see the big drop, though. Look at that yield rate, 39%. So of those chosen, about 4 out of 10 will choose that particular school in a highly selective school. And I just want you to keep that number in mind as we jump down to look at the next two categories. Again, academically sometimes competitive. Admit rates go from 56% in that selective on up to 78, 82% in the moderately selective. The national average is 70%. So when you think about the 3,000 colleges out there, there's opportunity to go to school. It's just there's different admit rates. Students are applying to more schools, especially as a result of the pandemic and test optional. So we've seen schools get even more selective based on the number of applications they've received. Doesn't mean they've changed their education. It just means they've gotten more applications. So again, these yield rates, 24%, 21%, the number admitted that choose them. I just want you to think about that because you've got some control over a lot of the application, but in particular, the ability to let a school or university know, I see fit, I see a sense of connection. That is good admission strategy, the ability to lean in, visit with us, take advantage of online opportunities, but it's also the best way to prepare for your freshman year. Again, just another sample here to understand when we read applications, we are looking for reasons to admit. Here's a sample funnel of a school that got just over 19,000 applications. The first readers, the admission counselors who represented a school district or an area like California, I read all the applications for California. When we go through and take a first look, we get excited by 12,500 of those students. Our second readers, my colleagues might take a look and might be able to pare that number from 12,500 down to 9,000. We're now getting into the weeds. The students have already passed muster, and then our committees might cut close to another 2,000. And a school sample like this might be gold to admit 36% or that 7,000. And again, you can take a look at that yield rate, that 26.7%. And here's what we're looking at. Again, the academic qualities and personal qualities are mapped out here, but your ability to control demonstrated interest is what we're referring to here when we talk about this yield rate, and your ability to write strong supplemental writing samples, namely, why do you want to go to a school? Not only are they good admission strategy, but again, they're preparing you to take a look at what you're going to experience in freshman year. The more you dive in, the more you engage with us, the more you should be able to build a bucket list of things that you want to do and then specifically name them at a particular school. So why students choose a college? When you get down to it in April, I love being online with a colleague recently that said there are 3 major decisions in the college application process. And students have control over 2 out of 3. Where to apply, who gets admitted, and where to attend, right? So students control where they apply. Your high school counselors will help guide and massage that list. We decide who to admit. And again, you might come away with some deny letters. That's okay, because you're still on the path to get to college. And then where to attend, you're building capacity to in the April of your senior year to make this big decision. And so the work you do now, the focus on why me at this place, will become critical to that transition to school. So all some good reasons here: money, safety, distance from home. Do you know people that have gone there? You have friends that are there, their traditions, their sports, their extracurricular activities, the city that they're located in. I have relatives there. All these are great reasons to make that choice. The only one bad here is reputation. Just going based solely on reputation does not change your experience. You need to show up and be a part of that school. And the top 5 reasons, we do studies and outside groups do studies to look at why students choose a school. Location comes up as a top 5 all the time, right? So we love Cincinnati. It's recently been rated the #1 college city for students to move to. It's a great place. We love the location. You got to find out if it's right for you or if the schools that you're looking at have a great backdrop for you to go to school in. The size of the campus, there's no right or wrong answer. You'll find colleges and universities under 1,000 all the way up to 72,000. But the inward journey that you do to think about how you learn best, how much you rely on mentorship or your teachers, that's something for you to consider and try to find that sweet spot. Maybe it's small school, maybe it's medium size, maybe it's that large school. Cost of attendance, again, go back to that likely and target schools. You might find great scholarship opportunities. At Xavier, we have a whole host of merit scholarships that could take a large chunk of that cost right off the bat out of your fees by the fact that you've been awarded that based on merit. Noting that you got accepted, most students going through this process will pick up 1 or 2 deny letters. It's not a bad thing. Balance the list. Don't come up with all deny letters and you're going to be fine. And again, the #1 reason students choose a school, it just feels right. It feels like home. And that's an important place to get to. And to the parents on the line and to the aunts and uncles and all the well-meaning people that try to encourage students to choose a school or think about schools, they need to take ownership in April of this feels like it. I am committing. Mentally, that is going to do so much to set them up for success. And as we look next at that transition process they go to, claim that. The why did you choose this school? Parents and friends, bottle that up and be willing to share that with the students when they land on our campuses for freshman and sophomore year. There are 3,000 awesome schools out there. The what you do as a student with the next 4 years, that you have all the control in the world over. So when you get to campus, think about this transition, the newness, the fitting in, the building new community. The idea, what we know on campus you will struggle with, probably, I did, time management, finding new friendships, and really making that adjustment. We will have plenty of support on our college campuses. Finding out where that support is located physically, just knowing where you can rely on counselors, how important it is to build a peer network, and how, as a family, you can kind of navigate this transition to college are all very important things. The national rates are over 30% of students not persisting from freshman to sophomore year. And it's not all the students' fault necessarily, but I think making the strong commitment to landing on a campus and completing your degree there is part of it. Part of it is kind of blocking out the stuff that you'll see on social media. As you land on our campuses, you're going to have friends going all over the country. It's never any better, or they do not escape this transition to college scenario that you will all go through. Doesn't matter if it's Hawaii, Cincinnati, England, it's going to be part of that same transition and newness in life. And so the stages of adjustment, I just want to reflect on these quickly because this is the reality. And I've seen parents and students in complete denial that this is going to happen, and it will. At some point, there's going to be this separation for students and for parents. I'll never forget a young lady that I worked with from Connecticut who chose to attend the school I worked for in Hawaii. And she flew all the way to Hawaii on her own and landed on campus. Her dad called and said, she's coming back home. Can you go talk to her at the airport? And I went to the airport, met with her, and the young lady refused to leave the airport, booked another flight, another 10 or 11-hour flight right back to Connecticut. And we thought, okay, we failed. She just didn't succeed at HP, at the school I was at HPU. But around December or November of the next, or that fall, she called me and she said, Mr. Devine, I'm ready. I said, ready for what? She said, I'm ready to go to school in Hawaii. I said, why weren't you ready 3 months ago? And she said, I mentally never prepared for it. My parents never prepared for it. I wasn't ready to leave them. I've seen what it looks like and feels like now. I've spent a semester at home and now I'm ready to go. So these stages of adjustment, here they come. This is a fun one. After you make your decision in May 1, we've got this critical time. And colleges and universities got sloppy in the way we worked with you throughout the summer. We never had to do this before. We are readjusting to understand from May 1 after your senior year until the time you land on our campus, it's critical to start the engagement process then. This young lady is getting ready to go to college, right? She just crushed it at Bed Bath & Beyond. She's got everything she needs to decorate the room. She sees that excitement in front of her before she leaves home. But that little guy on the left, that little furry guy, Rover, that represents what she's going to miss, that anxiety. This is the fear and anxiety stage that takes place right before you get to go. And sometimes parents are great at this point and students aren't, and vice versa. So understanding that in the summer, it's time to begin that transition work. And I'll talk about May 1. When you get to campus, it looks just like all the pictures we put on the website. All the beauty is there, all the energy, all the excitement. This is one of our favorite days at Xavier. It's called Club Day. And it's the day, it's like a carnival, and it's all the clubs come out and talk about recruiting new members, the freshman class to come join our club to do these fun and exciting things. This is known as the honeymoon phase, and we need to capitalize on this. And it's very critical to get students connected to clubs and organizations because that will provide some structure as they move on. Early snowfall in Cincinnati, you might see this, and this is when the initial shock takes place. This looks different than California. This is different than San Diego, right? What am I doing here? Did I make the right choice? What if I took AP stats in senior year? Could have I gotten into a different school? I see my friends in Miami, Florida. Maybe I should have gone there, right? This initial shock will kind of make you wonder, did I do the right thing? But when you join clubs and you find upperclassmen, they'll help you to kind of push on through that to this initial adjustment, this first adjustment phase that you're starting to figure it out. This is a great shot of our move crew at Xavier. These are upperclassmen that volunteer to help you move in. They have a lot of fun with it. We have tons of volunteers that come back to do it. This is a great group to rely on when you're kind of pulling yourself through here. Talk to these upperclassmen who probably have gone through a very similar situation as you are, and then you'll start to have fun. When the midterms get tough, when the grades get coming in and things get tough late in the first semester or sometimes second semester, students sometimes kind of fall back to isolation. They fall back to wondering if they should have been admitted, if they're prepared. We know this is coming. They kind of look for groups, and this is where the importance of those student organizations makes sense and help you through to push through and find that connection. A lot of time that small group, and I will say that Californians are usually one of the top 5 states represented on any college campus in the country. So find your California peeps, kind of talk about and bemoan the fact that In-N-Out Burger might be 3,000 miles away. Talk about what you missed, the beaches. Find that sense of smaller community, and you'll begin that real adaptation. And parents, you don't always like this, but there will be a day, maybe in the spring, maybe in the fall, but usually in late spring, when the students might call you and say, I'm thinking of staying here for spring break, or going on a trip, on an alternative international spring break. Or, hey, mom, dad, I think for the summer, I'm going to stay in Cincinnati and do a research project, or go visit a friend in Massachusetts. And that's when they've begun that full adaptation to becoming part of our Musketeer family. This is a great shot of our basketball arena right in the center of campus. Nothing like getting into a rocking stadium in March Madness to really get this sense of, this is my place, I've assimilated, and I've made that transition. So parents, we know they'll go through this. It's an up and down kind of situation. We now have deans of freshman year, full freshman experiences, and we're going to be gearing our students towards making this transition so that they can find their footing and make that connection. There is a survey called the National Survey for Student Engagement. Most colleges will have information about that on their website, and that looks at the school's ability to connect students to students, students to clubs, students to faculty. It looks at their ability to build in time management skills, work on time management skills, find mentorship, friendship, and that sense of inclusion. So NSSE or NSSE is something you can often find, and it's a great assessment of how this all works. I love talking about this because it was so instrumental in my college experience. I set out to be pre-med. I kind of followed all the guidance. I became an EMT, got my first internship in a hospital, and promptly fainted in my first day in the ER. At that point, I thought I was going to drop out of school. I figured I failed as a pre-med major, and what would I do now? And thankfully, a student that I ran track with, he said, hey, I'm an upperclassman. I know people that went through the same thing, laughed about it, put me in touch with Professor Morioni, a guy that became a lifelong friend and mentor, helped me to find my new footing, my new major, and helped to ensure that I was finding my way to the clubs and organizations that would help me in that transition. So it's really important to think about that experience for that freshman year. Parents, your role, and we'll come to a close here so we can have some questions, is to find out what support is there, name the freshman orientation program and the first year experience, know when club day is, when the opportunity to join clubs will take place, know how the advising works. We have peer mentors at Xavier. We have a 6-member coaching staff for each student, but you can find out some of the resources offered for the college. In particular, students that are undecided for major or perhaps are far from home. First generation, another example. There are resources on campus. Parents can dive in, take a look at that. We do, and most schools will, offer a parent orientation, and that's important for parents to go to. You will be consultants, as this next picture will showcase. You have had pedal power and steering power up until they're 17 and 18. You're going to get on the back of the bike. One of my deans of students shared this photograph with me, these photographs, and said, parents always have pedal power, but now you're relying on them to get to campus and make sure that they're doing the right thing. And you become what we call bucket list consultants. You're there to drive the students to make sure they're taking advantages of all the things offered on our campus that they set out and looked at when they did the college search. You're there to put in front of them the carrot principle, the idea of, hey, remember junior year, study abroad, or remember in March, the basketball team will be playing, or remember the opportunities that you talked about for alternative spring breaks. That's how parents can consult and manage through this process. My big message today is May 1 is when students make that final decision. That's the day that you raise your hand and say, I want to go to school here. Again, you've decided where to apply to. We've made some admission decisions. Maybe you applied to 10 schools, got admitted to 7, maybe 1 or 2 just don't look good financially, so you're down to 5. You can still only attend 1. Claim that school, know why you're making that decision, understand you'll have all that power in April, and understand that May 1 becomes the starting line for your college experience, not the finish line. What you do with college is all out in front of you. And that early work will begin in the summer. It will begin with opportunities to network, usually virtually. It will become opportunities to connect with summer fly-off programs, departure programs, maybe taking place in your backyard or in California. The opportunity to participate in orientation program. At Xavier, we call it Manresa, and it's a very well-known program, a great opportunity to make that transition to and connect with the school and your classmates early on. And then move-in day, have fun, right? Decorate your room, reach your hand out, be the one willing to meet people and say, hello, I'm from San Diego, California, and I'm excited to be here. And that's my comments. I do want to leave I do have a few more advice tips I can give, but I went, hey, Emily, how are you? I do want parents, if you have any questions, comments, or thoughts, or even recollections about what it was like for you freshman year, please chat those in, or I do welcome you to kind of unmute and jump in and ask any questions that you might have. If not, as Ms. Stevenson knows, I could talk all night about this stuff. So open to any questions or chats. I'm going to take a look and pull that up, and Eve might come on and help me and see if we've had anything come up yet.
They are pretty quiet in the chat so far, but I do have a question.
Great, Eve. Yeah.
Obviously, our students are going to have some steps to those steps of separation and moving to a campus. Are there similar steps that parents can expect to go through as their first or maybe last child is moving across the country to Cincinnati?
Yeah, absolutely. It is a family process. I think our deans of students will often talk about, we will deal with the students, we will be dealing with the students, and the parents really have this kind of, I love the idea of it's a consulting role, but they are very willing to talk to parents. And for parents, I think to understand the what's available, literally, there's always opportunities. When you go to the orientation program, the parent orientation, everything looks like fun, and it is. But be purposeful about knowing who the tutors are, who the academic advisors are. At Xavier, you'll meet with the success coaches. You can kind of get a feel for them, and just even knowing where their offices are located, how they set appointments, really will help drive. And you're going to kind of carrot principle to the student and say, when they call you, hey, have you gone to see your success coach? Sounds like you're struggling with the particular major, and you really want to drive the student to take leadership in finding that. But knowing what the resources are, I think, is where the parents best serve the student. And I will say, I've worked with students from California for a long time. Some going to Florida, some going to the East Coast, some going to Hawaii, now going to Cincinnati. Get around this, think about this. Do practice days of saying goodbye in your driveway well before it becomes a reality, because the emotion is real. And I should have a picture up here. Our president, Dr. Hanich, she does a great job at our new parent orientation. There's real emotion there, because there's a moment that you're going to get on a plane. And I've seen families just psychologically not really deal with it. They're good at pushing it out of their head. And when it really happens, then it becomes kind of that really, whoa, what's gone on here? But our campuses are geared for this. We study this a lot now. We have, especially, with our education programs, we're really kind of looking at who students are when they come to campus. We'll be particularly interested in this group that's come with this COVID life pandemic experience, and we'll be able to track them and watch that. But parents, watch for all of that stuff in the orientation part of it. There's a point where we're purposeful about, okay, parents go this way, students go that way, because they need to make that break. And I think the idea of parents sticking around, I've seen them stick around for a semester before letting go, and I've seen them go the other way. I had a student that's still mad that her and her parents' friends, they all flew to Europe after dropping their children off on college. They're like, great, now I've got 2 weeks. And and the students felt a little robbed because they couldn't call their parents necessarily on the European time difference and all that stuff. So don't go too crazy about pushing them out of the nest.
We did get a question here from Maria as well.
Okay.
How do you anticipate past COVID lockdowns and restrictions will impact students' preparedness to fly the nest and adjust to being so far from home?
Yeah, Maria, that's a great question. And I think on the positive side, we have seen a real kind of deep connection in our classes because they're excited to get back at it. They've been through a lot. Even our international students, this is such a shared worldwide experience that they're coming to campus, and there's just some early thoughts that this will be a very connected class. And we look at and study classes 10 and 15 and 25 years out, and we see how many come back for alumni events. This could be a class that's really strongly represented. But we are prepared and thinking about that students may have had a loss of time doing activities and kind of their social skills and their classroom skills. Our teachers are kind of gearing up and watching for that. And I think the best way to coach students through that is to have them be open and share that experience. And we're seeing all kinds of things that are different. As far as their preparedness, I think they've still got it. We might anticipate a little bit of loss perhaps in things like STEM or math fields, and we might kind of see some work being done to catch students up. But we're not overly worried about that. But the idea of their kind of getting back into their extracurricular activities, we really want to make sure that they're geared into that. At Xavier, we were open for the past 2 years. We did hybrid learning, so students were online for part of it. And our student life activities were really compromised. Our basketball stadium's right in the middle of campus, and we played games, but nobody could go watch. And you could tell that really, there's an energy that comes about experiencing that experiencing the team and the Division I activity with our students. So a good question.
All right, well, it looks like we have hit that 9 o'clock hour. Emily, did you have any final words that you would like to say to our participants since we've got you here?
No, I don't, but I'm so glad to see that people join, especially so late. And thank you.
Yes.
We really appreciate you, and it's good to see you always.
Yep, good to see you guys, and good luck to the parents during this search. It will work out. You've got some great counselors there to help you navigate this. So enjoy the journey.
Yes, and parents, thank you for joining us. Do remember that this presentation and the others from tonight will be on the Poway CTE YouTube channel. So thank you so much and have a great night.
Bye, everyone. Thank